Our aim for today is that Kipsters will be able to solve, graph, and check one-step inequalities. So we're looking at being able to solve, graph, and check one-step inequalities. This is no different than what we've done before. It's just kind of putting it all together in one day, giving us a little bit more practice, and kind of reminding us of some of the key details when it comes to dealing with inequalities. So Monday we dealt with multiplications and divisions. Last Friday we dealt with additions and subtractions. Now we're just putting it all together in one day, making sure that we're all on the same page here. So looking at this first problem, it says x plus 3 is greater than negative 9. Cassandra, what is the first thing I need to do to solve this inequality? Okay, add a negative 3 to both sides. So she's treating this just like it's an equation and saying, I need to get the x alone. So I'm going to add a negative 3 to both sides. Very good. So we do that, and we do indeed get the x alone. Now, I see that I added a negative 3 to both sides. I added a negative number to both sides. Kip yes or kip no. Do I need to flip the inequality symbol? No, because it's addition. Remember that rule is only for multiplications and divisions. So we're good here. Inequality symbol stays the same way. We get x is negative 12. Cassandra.
So don't we have to put like a 1 to the x, or is it only for negative?
It's only for the negative, because remember 1 times x, that's just x. Identity property, right? All right. So when we look at this, this is our first opportunity to check. We check that we solved it correctly, just like it was an equation. So the way that we check that is we check it just like it was an equation. We're going to take that original inequality. We're going to write it down again. So all I've done here is I've taken this and I've rewritten it over here. And now I'm going to take this negative 12 and I'm going to plug it in for x. So here I've got negative 12 plus 3 is greater than negative 9. Negative 12 plus 3 is negative 9. And if my first check goes correctly, things are going to come out equal. Because basically we're treating it just like it's an equation. So we should get things that come out equal. All right, that tells us our starting point is okay to go. So we can go ahead and get our starting point going over here. We've got negative 12 as our starting point. Show me with your hand, open or closed. Remember, open or closed fist will show me that this is an open or closed inequality. I should see a lot of religious and holy hands up there. So this is a whole. All right. And we want greater than negative 12. So thinking about the numbers that are greater than negative 12, those are going to be the things that are getting more and more positive. So it looks like we should be shading this direction. The way that we want to check that is by plugging in a value that we've shaded over. RJ, what value would you like to plug in for our second check? He says negative 11. That's perfectly okay. I would normally come all the way down here, and I would find that what value is somewhere way down this line. That's really easy to work with. 0. Okay, so negative 11 totally works fine for this one. So I'm actually going to use it. I'm going to put hold on. I'm going to rewrite my inequality. X plus 3 is greater than negative 9. RJ says let's plug in negative 11. That's totally fine. Negative 11 plus 3 is greater than negative 9. So I'm just taking this check value on this shaded side. Negative 11 plus 3, that's opposite sign subtract, is 8. Take the sign larger number. Negative 8 is greater than negative 9. Is negative 8 greater than negative 9? Yeah. Owing somebody $8 is better than owing them $9. So that's correct. So we got both of our checks done. We're good to go on this one. All right, so let's look at the next one. I've got 3/4 x is less than or equal to -6. What do I need to do to solve this inequality? Mr. LaRue.
You want to put 4 over 3 times 3 over 4. Cancel it out.
All right, so he wants to multiply this side by 4 over 3. Just like it's an equation, we're going to do the same thing to both sides. Paying very careful attention to our positives and our negatives. Here we have 3 cancels out with 3, 4 cancels out with 4. That leaves us with our x. Kip yes or kip no. Should I flip in this particular situation? That was one for everybody. Kip yes or kip no. Should I flip in this situation? See, everybody's saying no because we did multiply, but it was multiplication by a positive on both sides. This multiplication was a positive 4/3, so that is not a flip situation. All right, I want to go ahead and do this. I have x is less than -24 over 3, which I can simplify to x is less than -8. You could have done that simplification beforehand. Either way, it's up to you. Just make sure that you recognize that as a bad date, so you have your correct sign. So let's go ahead and plug that in for our first check. And we're going to plug in -8 to check that we solve that correctly like an equation. We want it to come out correctly. This is one that I saw in a lot of people's paper as they were doing their work today. You've got to be very careful on your check too. Over here on this right-hand side, or left-hand side, is this a good date or a bad date? Bad date. So if you don't recognize that as a bad date and you make a mistake there, you might get 6 is equal to -6, which tells you something is wrong. I felt like I saw a lot of people do things like this, and they would say 6 is equal to -6. They'd call it checked and moved on. Is 6 equal to -6? No, so if you get something like this, you know something's wrong. So in this case, what would have been wrong was that my check was wrong, because this was a good date, or this was a positive times a negative. That should have been a negative. Okay? Sometimes it's easy as that. Sometimes the problem is with your work itself. Okay? That tells us our starting point is -8. Please show me with your fist, open or closed. Show me with your hand, open or closed. Good, I see a lot of closed fists. And over here I have x is less than or equal to -8. So I want the numbers that are less than -8. Those are things that are going to be in a much worse position. So -9, -10, so on and so forth. Those all seem like those would be worse places to be, owing somebody $10, $20, so on and so forth. And so let's go ahead and check to make sure that that was shaded the correct direction. I'm going to rewrite my original inequality. 3/4 x is less than or equal to -6. And I want to plug a number in for x. Somebody with a raised hand, tell me what value would you like to plug in for our second check here? Jaime. He wants to plug in 0. I'm going to caution you and ask you, where is 0? 0 is way over here, so that's not going to be a good point to check. He's saying -12. Jaime, why did you skip over -9, -10, and -11 and go all the way to -12?
Because -12 is more easier.
Why is it easier?
Because the 10 and the 9 is not factored and it's just utilized. Tricky, definitely.
Yeah, so what he's saying is he's multiplying by 3/4. He knows that if he uses those other numbers, he's going to end up with a decimal. So he wanted something that was a factor of 4. So he's taking his 3/4. He's coming all the way over here to -12. And so now he sees this is a bad date over here. That's going to be negative. But the reason why he did that, now I can break this 12 down into 4 times 3. So I can cancel out my 4s. That gives me 3 times 3 is -9, is less than -6. Kip yes or Kip no. Negative 9 is less than negative 6. Kip yes or Kip no. Negative 9 is less than negative 6. Absolutely. So that tells us that we did shade the correct direction. Okay? All right. Scroll on over. One more. Or two more. Negative 2.5x is greater than negative 12.5. What do I need to do to solve this inequality, Triana?
I divide
Divide by what?
negative 0.25. I mean negative 2.5.
Negative 2.5. Now this is a division. We need to ask ourselves, is this a division that forces us to flip? So Kip yes or Kip no. Is this a flipping situation? I'm only seeing about half of you respond. Is this a flipping situation? Christy, why is it a flipping situation? Yeah, we're dividing both sides by a negative. So very good. She recognizes we're dividing both sides by a negative. She knows that means that we need to flip it around. So we get x. I'm going to do you guys a big favor. Negative 12.5 divided by negative 2.5 is exactly 5. So we'll go ahead and move on to our check. Negative 2.5x is greater than negative 12.5. Negative 2.5 times 5. So we're just plugging in that value. It's greater than negative 12.5. We want these two things to come out equal, so I'm going to do this multiplication. $12.5, it should be negative, so I get negative 12.5 is equal to negative 12.5. That means that we solved the equation correctly. That means our starting point is correct. We know our starting point should be 5. This says x is less than 5. Okay, so I already see Triana. She's thinking to herself, all right, Mr. Roots, this is an open inequality. If I want x is less than 5, I want the numbers that are less than 5. So on my number line, those are coming towards this direction. And so now I need a value to do my second check, something that I shaded over. Christopher? Okay, he's saying 3. I think that's an okay choice. I think that there's an even easier choice that we could deal with here. Amanda? Yeah, 0. If we keep coming down the line, we're going to find 0 is one of our solutions. So we have negative 2.5x is greater than negative 12.5. Again, that's our original equation, or inequality. I'm going to plug in 0. And anything multiplied by 0 is greater than negative 12.5. Kip yes or Kip no. 0 is greater than negative 12.5. Kip yes or Kip no. 0 is greater than negative 12.5. Yeah, you rather owe nothing than owe somebody $12.50. So that we're good there. Question, Joshua.
What if we flip so it'd be like a 12.5 greater than
So when we're doing the check, we're always going back to the original. Always going back to the original. So we don't flip the original. Remember, we're only flipping when we're doing that inverse operation. Cassandra. Last one. 3 is less than x minus 5. Marquita, what's the first thing that we should do here? So Marquita says, first thing we should do is leave chain switch, then what, Marquita? What's a less than?
So 3 less than x plus negative 5 plus 5.
So you added 5 to one side of the equation. I definitely heard that. And so if you add 5 to one side of the inequality, you have to do this same thing. So over here, we're going to have that 3 plus 5. Very good. So it's going to be 8 is less than x. Now we've run into that situation that Alvin hates so much, which is when his variable is over on that right-hand side. He doesn't really like to see it that way. Alvin really likes to see his variable on the left-hand side. So he's just going to rewrite this so it's the other way. Okay, remember there's two ways to write every inequality. So this one says x is greater than 8. So before we go ahead and write that down as our starting point, we want to check it by plugging into the original inequality. 3 is less than x plus negative 5. We're going to plug in that 8. And we want these to come out equal. 8 plus negative 5, that's opposite sign subtract. Take the sign of a larger number. 3 is equal to 3. That is an excellent first check. Now we need to be asking ourselves, is this an open inequality or a closed inequality? Show me please. Open or closed? Looking for 100% of people to respond. Open or closed? Open inequality, so we've got open. And we rewrote this so it says x is greater than 8. So we're looking for the numbers that are greater than 8. That's going to be way here in the more positive direction. And just to double check that we have this down, we need to pick a value to plug in. Monia, what value would you like to plug in? What value would you like to plug in before you ask your question? 10. So let's plug that in and then we'll get to your question. 3 is less than x plus negative 5. We're going to plug in 10. I like 10. 10s are easy to deal with a lot of times. 3 is less than 10 plus negative 5, which is 5. 3 is less than 5. True? Give yes or give no. 3 is less than 5. Looking for 100% response. 3 is less than 5. Still looking for 100% response. 3 is less than 5. Okay, we get that 3 is indeed less than 5, so that's our first, or that shows that we have shade in the correct direction. So let's come back to Mania's first question.
What was my question? Oh, I didn't flip the little sign, but I got the same answer. But I thought you didn't need to flip it if it's addition or something.
Yep. So I think Monia is asking a very good question here. She's saying, why does it look like you flipped the inequality symbol around? So when we talk about flipping the inequality symbol, we're talking about making it face the opposite direction of the variable. So up here, when we flipped the inequality symbol, it was facing towards the x, and when we flipped it, it's now facing away from the x. Down here, we just rewrote the inequality in the same way. We just turned it around so we had our x on the other side. This is always opening towards the x. So we didn't really flip the inequality symbol so it was facing a different direction from the x. We just turned it around so it was something that was more compatible for us. Not everybody has to do that. Okay. Any other questions about these problems? Cassandra. So you're looking at the inequality symbol. Remember, this is the greater than symbol. So this tells me x is greater than 8. So we want numbers that are greater than 8. And then you look back at the original problem to do one of your checks. You should write that down as a key point for yourself. All right. Key points for the good of the group. Yep, flip the inequality symbol. when you multiply both sides, multiply or divide both sides by a negative. Other key points. Joshua.
One key point is when it looks like sometimes when we flip, we don't go back to the original, but we usually do, and also for yeah, that's about it.
Okay, so he's giving another key point, just saying it a little bit differently about flipping the inequality symbol. Any other key points? Kelly.
To check before you graph it.
Okay, make sure to do both checks. Check your starting point. So Kelly's specifically saying that you should be checking your starting point before you graph. And check your shaded direction.